Good morning, students. Today we are going to be working on multiplying multi-digit numbers using the base 10 blocks. And we have done work in the past with the base 10 blocks, so these are not new to you. We used them when we did adding and when we did subtracting bigger numbers. So we are going to actually use them the same way, except we'll be multiplying today. So just as a quick review, so that we have our brains all working in the same spot, if you remember, the small square, when we're using the base 10, represents our ones place. The long, we call it, if you recall, is the block that represents our tens place. So each long represents 110. And the square that has 100 of these little circles in it represents our hundreds. So just as a quick refresher, we have our ones, we have our long, which represents our tens, and we have our cube, which represents our hundreds. And so we'll be using that throughout today's lesson. Now that we have reviewed our place value, I really want you to take a look at the steps, because when we are multiplying using more than one digit and we're using the base 10 blocks, we need to use certain steps. And I would really like you to get your notebook out for this part and write these down so that when you come back to class, you can pull this out and refer to it during work time if you need it. The first thing that you're going to do is lay out the problem. And when I say lay out the problem, what I mean by that is you are going to draw these lines. You see how we have these blue lines here? You're going to draw these lines, and that from there you're going to take, and we're going to use the problem 12 times 15. So for that, after we've drawn our spots there, we are going to go ahead and lay out the problem using the base 10 blocks. So when we look at this, we see that we have our 12 times our 15, and we start with our 12 and we're going to lay that out. So I don't need 100 for this spot, but I do need to put my 10 on top. So I'm laying that first number out on top, and then I'm bringing down 1, and since it's 12, I bring down 2 ones, and I want to lay that out neatly, as you can see. So once I've laid that out neatly, now I need to go along and I need to use my side over here. So over here is now where I lay my second number down. So in this case it's 15, and we're going to put it over here. So again, I don't need 100, and I just set these up a little easier by laying them out like this. So we do a 15. So I have 110, as we can see here, and then I have 5 ones to lay out. So I'm going to go over here and put 1 there, 1 there, another 1 there, and again I'm trying really hard to do this neatly so that it's very organized. There's 4 ones and 5 to give me a total of 15. So now this shows me that I'm all done with my first step. I laid out the problem in an array form. All right, so again, I want you, now we've written down the first problem, or the first step, which I hope you put in your notebook. Now our second step is you're going to touch each place value to multiply. And when I say that, I'll show you exactly what I'm talking about for that. Okay, so as I'm touching, when I do that, I'm going to start here and touch my 10 times 10, and that's going to give me 100. So I go up top and I drag down a hundreds block, and I want to be careful to keep it within that array so that I've got that. Then the second thing I want to do, I'm going to keep touching along. I want to touch everything on, so I'm going to touch everything along the side and take everything along the side times everything along the top. I did my 10 times 10, which gave me 100. So the next thing I'm going to do is take my 10 times 1, which will give me 10. So I bring my 10 down, and I want to make sure it's going the correct way, because when I'm all done, I should have something that looks like a rectangular array. So then after I've done my 10 times, my first 10 times 1, I'm going to take it again and go 10 times 1 and pull down my 10. So now I am done with taking this 10 times everything across the top. Now I need to go to this 1 and start here. And then I'm going to take 1 times everything across the top. So let's do that. So I go 1 times 10, and of course that gives me another 10. And now this time I'm going to pick the 10 that's going the longer way, or kind of horizontal. And that's going to lay down here, because that's what I'm working with, is the horizontal 10. And then I'm going to go and do the same thing here with my 1 times 1, and that gives me a 1. So I bring that down and place it there. And then I do my 1 times 1 here, and I bring down another 1. And notice how I'm trying to place these as neatly as I can so that it's still organized to look at. Now that I did that one, I have to keep doing all the rest of these ones across everything on top. So I'm just going to do that now and kind of talk you through it. So be paying careful attention and seeing where I'm going from here. So again, I'm going to do a 1 times my 10 up top and bring it down here. Then I'm going to take my 1 times 1 and my 1 times 1. And so those two both go down here. And as you get familiar with doing this, you'll notice you'll be able to lay them out even quicker. But since we're walking you through this, and this is the first time, I'm taking it kind of piece by piece. So now I take this one and take it times everything across the top. So 1 times 10 is 10. And 1 times 1 and 1 times 1. And I'm going to lay those out. Okay. You guessed it, same thing. 1 times everything across the top. So 1 times 10, 1 times 1, 1 times 1. I bring down my 10 again, and then I bring down my 1s. And then I'm really getting close. I'm down to the bottom now. So again, I'm going to take this 1 times all 3 of my numbers across the top. So 1 times 10, bring down my 10, and then I'm going to take 1 times 1, and then I'm going to again take my 1 times my 1 for my last of my multiplying. Okay, so now I've got my array laid out. As you can see, my array is laid out here, and it's in a rectangular shape. So now I'm going to move on to step 3. Now if I notice step 3, I'm going to take this up here, and step 3 tells me that I need to remove the outside blocks, the 10s and the 1s. So I'm going to go ahead and over here, I'm going to get rid of these and get rid of these. So I'm removing that original problem because we're done with that and I don't want to get confused with it. So I take and I get rid of those. And if you're working, you can just do this very easily when you're pulling and dragging the blocks at your own spot. And I'm just kind of moving, I'm just kind of moving them off to the side right now. So just to show you we're done. So I removed those. Now I have just my array left. Okay. All right, now we're on to our fourth and final step. So again, I hope you've been writing each of these down for easy referral when you come back to class. Our fourth step is to count up each place value, starting with the ones, and work left. And that's going to give me my answer. And here's where I may or may not need to regroup. It'll depend on how many of each place value I have. Remember, 10 of something means I need to regroup. So let's go ahead and count. We've got 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 of our hundreds blocks. So I'm going to circle those. And of course for you, if you're working with these at your spot, you're just going to take 10 of those. And from there, you're going to regroup those for another 10. And I'm going to lay mine right over here to the side. What I like to do too, if I'm writing these out, since I can't physically get rid of them, I will cross them out if I'm writing them. So I know that I traded that in for a 10. So now I move over and I count my 10s. And I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So I have 8 10s. Now I'm going to go up here and I have 0 ones. I have 8 10s. And then finally you can see that I just have 100. So my final answer, once I've regrouped and done everything else, is 180. It took us a little while that first time, but I think you're going to find that you do a great job the more practice you have. We will do another practice example in just a couple minutes. So now that you've had some practice, let's try another one. I've written out the problem, so we're working on 22 times 16. We have our base 10 blocks, and now the first thing we need to do, if you remember, is draw our array, or draw our lines. I'm doing this just freehand this time, so it won't be quite as neat, but it'll still work. All right, so we've done that, and then if you remember, we also, part of this step is laying out our base 10 blocks. So we put our 22 along the top, and then we put our 16 along the side. So we have a 1, 2, 3 ones, 4 ones, 5 ones, and 6 ones. All right. So then from there, we start to multiply. And remember, we touch, so we start here, and we get 100. We take 10 times 10 again. And again, we get 100, so we bring our hundreds block down. Then we go ahead and we take 10 times 1 and 10 times 1. So we get our 10s, and we need them to go vertical to line up correctly. So we're done with our 10s in the first number. So now we're going to move on to our 1s. We have 6 1s down here and then 2 up here. So we take our first one and we go 1 times 10. And so we get, now we're switching to horizontal, we get a 10. And then we take 1 times 10 again. And we get a 10. And then we take 1 times 1 and 1 times 1 again. And then we're going to bring down our 1s. So we bring that down. And we bring another one down, and we're lining them up carefully. Then we move on and we're going to do the same thing 5 more times. So I won't be going through it quite as detailed, but I will talk to you as I'm kind of moving things along. And you can pause it if you need to, or keep up as best you can and rewind as needed. So now I go ahead and I'm going to take the rest of these times my numbers up here. So I'm going to start with my next 1. And 1 times 10. Bring down my 10. Another 1 times 10. Bring down my 10. 1 times 1. 1 times 1. So then I move on again, and I'm going to take my 1 times my, I'm moving right here, so I'm 1 times 10 again, which gives me 10. Same thing again. 1 times 10 gives me another 10. And then I have another 1 times 1, 1 times 1. So I'm going to set those out. And I'm still moving along. All right, so next I go to my 4th one, and I do 1 times 10, 1 times 10, and then I'm going to have to move on to my 1 times 1 and bring that down here, and another 1 times 1, and I bring that down here. So I'm still going. I'm going to do this 1 times 10 and 1 times 10 again, and 1 times 1. So 1 times 1 and 1 times 1 again. And finally I'm on the last one. So I'm going to go 1 times 10, 1 times 10, 1 times 1, and 1 times 1. And then we'll move on to the next step. Now, if you remember from your notebook, the next thing we're going to do is we need to get rid of the outsides. So now we're going to move the outside blocks away so we don't get confused with those, if you remember that from our steps. And then after we get all those moved, now remember, if you were doing this with real blocks, you would just put them back and that would be good. So now we have that moved. Now we want to add up our place values and regroup. So for my 1s, if I go over here, I have 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. So I'm going to take my pen and I'm going to circle 10 of those. And then I'll bring a 10 over to add in. And then from last time I told you I like to cross that out. And I end up with 2 1s left. So I'm going to write that up here. Then I'm going to go and count my 10s. So up here I have 10, 20, 30. And then I have 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100. And we know what we need to do with 100. Again, we'll circle. So there's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And I just like to recount to be sure. So I've got 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, and 100. So I'm going to go over here and drag down 100 and stick it there. I'm going to cross these off So I've used these. And then I'm going to count what I have left, which ends up being 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. So off to the side here, I'll write my 5. And then when I look, I have 1, 2, 3 hundredths. And I write my 300 right there. So my answer ends up being 352. Awesome job. We will work more with this in class. Have a great rest of the day.